welcome to Morning Vibes with Dr. Jerry the First, episode 147. It's Wednesday, the 7th day of February, 2018. My names are Dr. Jerry the First Oguzie. In continuation of our discussion on the habits to drop like a piece of hot charcoal, if you have to choose yourself first this 2018, today I'm taking a look at overcoming the fear of failure. Fear of failure phobia is otherwise called Atychiphobia. Normal amount of doubt regarding success in certain projects or relationships or examinations is usually present in most people. However, when the fear of failure takes on an extreme form, then it is termed as Atychiphobia. Have you ever been so afraid of failing at something that you decided not to try at all? Or has a fear of failure meant that subconsciously you undermined your own efforts to avoid the possibility of a larger failure? Many of us have probably experienced this at one time or another. The fear of failing can be mobilizing. It can cause us to do nothing and therefore resist moving forward. But when we allow fear to stop our forward progress in life, we are likely to miss some great opportunities along the way. Everyone hates to fail. But for some people, failing prevents such a significant psychological threat. Their motivation to avoid failure exceeds their motivation to succeed. This fear of failure causes them to unconsciously sabotage their chances of success in a variety of ways. Failing can elicit feelings such as disappointment, anger, frustration, sadness, regret, and confusion, which, while unpleasant, are usually not sufficient to trigger a full-blown fear of failure. In fact, the term fear of failure is somewhat of a misnomer, because it is not failure per se that underlies the behavior of people who have it. Rather, a fear of failure is essentially a fear of shame. People who have a fear of failure are motivated to avoid failing not because they cannot manage the basic emotions of disappointment, anger, and frustration that accompany such experiences, but because failing also makes them feel deep shame. Shame is a psychologically toxic emotion because instead of feeling bad about our actions or our efforts, shame makes us feel bad about who we are. Shame gets to the core of our egos, our identities, our self-esteem, and our feelings of emotional well-being. The damaging nature of shame makes it very urgent for those who have a fear of failure to avoid the psychological threats associated with failing by finding unconscious ways to mitigate the implications of a potential failure. For example, by buying unnecessary new clothes for a job interview instead of reading up on the company, which allows them to use the excuse, "I just didn't have time to fully prepare," when they eventually fail at the interview. Now, here are 10 signs you might have a fear of failure. Now, these are not official diagnostics, but if you feel that these criteria are very characteristic of you, then you might want to examine the issue further, either by doing more reading about it or by talking to a mental health professional. If failing makes you worry about what other people think about you, then you might be suffering from fear of failure. Failing makes you worry about your ability to pursue the future you desire, or failing makes you worry that people will lose interest in you. If failing makes you worry about how smart or capable you are, or it makes you worry about disappointing people whose opinion you value, Or you tend to tell people beforehand that you don't expect to succeed in order to lower their expectations, then you are suffering from fear of failure. Again, if once you fail at something, you have trouble imagining what you could have done differently to succeed, or you often get last-minute headaches, stomach aches, or other physical symptoms that prevent you from completing your preparation, or you often get distracted by tasks that prevent you from completing your preparation, which in hindsight were not as urgent and important as they seemed to be at that time, or you tend to procrastinate and run out of time to complete your preparation adequately, then you need to take a second look at the fear of failure. Causes of fear of failure. To find the causes of fear of failure, we first need to understand what failure actually means. We all have different definitions of failure, simply because we all have different benchmarks, or values, or belief systems. A failure to one person might simply be a great learning experience for someone else. Many of us are afraid of failing, at least some of the time. But fear of failure, which is also called Atychiphobia, is when we allow that fear to stop us doing the things that can move us forward to achieve our goals. Fear of failure can be linked to many causes. For instance, having critical or unsupportive parents is a cause for some people because they were routinely undermined or humiliated in childhood. They carry those negative feelings into adulthood. Experiencing a traumatic event at some point in your life can also be a cause. For example, say that some years ago you gave an important presentation in front of a large group and you did very poorly. That experience might have been so terrible that you became afraid of failing in other things. And you carry that fear even now, years later. This is how you experience fear of failure. You might experience some or all of the symptoms if you have a fear of failure. A reluctance to try new things or get involved in challenging projects. Self-sabotage, for instance, procrastination, excessive anxiety, or a failure to follow through with goals. Low self-esteem or self-confidence, commonly using such negative statements as, I will never be good enough to get that promotion, or I'm not smart enough to get on that team. Perfectionism, a willingness to try only those things that you know you will finish perfectly and successfully. Now, it's almost impossible to go through life without experiencing some kind of failure. People who do so probably live so cautiously that they go nowhere. Put simply, they are not really living at all. But the wonderful thing about failure is that it's entirely up to us to decide how to look at it. We can choose to see failure as the end of the world or as proof of just how inadequate we are. Or we can choose to look at it as an incredible learning experience that it often really is. Every time we fail at something, we can choose to look for the lesson we are meant to learn. These lessons are very important. They are how we grow and how we keep from making that same mistake again. Failures stop us only if we let them. It's easy to find successful people who have experienced failure. For example, Michael Jordan is widely considered to be one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And yet he was cut off from his high school basketball team, because his coach didn't think he had enough skill. Warren Buffett, one of the world's richest and most successful businessmen, was rejected by Harvard University. Richard Branson, the owner of the Virgin Empire, is a high school dropout. Most of us will stumble and fail in life. Thus, we get slammed in our faces and we might make some bad decisions. But imagine if Michael Jordan had given up on his dream to play basketball when he was cut from that team. Or imagine if Richard Branson had listened to the people who told him he would never do anything worthwhile without a high school diploma. Think of the opportunities you will miss if you let your failures stop you. Failure can also teach us things about ourselves that we would never have learned otherwise. For instance, failure can help you discover how strong a person you are. Failing at something can help you discover your truest friends or help you find unexpected motivation to succeed. Often, valuable insights come only after a failure. Accepting and learning from those insights is key to succeeding in life. How not to be afraid of failure. It's important to realize that in everything we do, there's always a chance that we'll fail. Facing that chance and embracing it is not only courageous, it also gives us a fuller, more rewarding life. However, here are a few ways to reduce the fear of failing. Analyze all potential outcomes. Many people experience fear of failure because they fear the unknown. Remove that fear by considering all of the potential outcomes of your decision. Learn to think more positively. Positive thinking is an incredibly powerful way to build self-confidence and neutralize self-sabotage. Look at the worst-case scenario. In some cases, the worst-case scenario may be genuinely disastrous, and it may be perfectly rational to fear failure. In other cases, however, this worst-case scenario may actually not be that bad, and recognizing this can help. Have a contingency plan. If you're afraid of failing at something, having a plan B in place can help you feel more confident about moving forward. How to stop living in fear. If you're afraid of failure, you might be uncomfortable setting goals. But goals help us define where we want to go to in life. Without goals, we have no sure destination. Many experts recommend visualization as a powerful tool for goal setting. Imagining how life will be after you've reached your goal is a great motivator to keep you moving forward. However, visualization might produce the opposite results in people who have a fear of failure. Research shows that people who have a fear of failure were often left in a strong negative mood after being asked to visualize goals and goal attainment. So what can you do instead? Start by setting a few small goals. These should be goals that are slightly but not overwhelmingly challenging. Think of these goals as early wins that are designed to help boost your confidence. For instance, if you have been too afraid to talk to the new department head who has the power to give you the promotion you want, then make that your first goal. Plan to stop by her office during the next week to introduce yourself. I imagine that you've been dreaming of returning back to school to get your MBA, but you are convinced that you're not smart enough to be admitted into the business school. Set a goal to talk with the school counselor or the admissions officer to see what's required for admission. Try to make your goals tiny steps on the route to much bigger goals. Don't focus on the end picture, that is getting the promotion or graduating with an MBA. Just focus on the next step, introducing yourself to the departmental head or talking to an admissions officer. That's it. Taking one small step at a time will help build your confidence, will keep you moving forward, and prevent you getting overwhelmed with visions of your final goal. Here are 13 incredibly simple ways to overcome the fear of failure. Imagine if you could do anything in the world without feeling fear or any negative feelings. Just imagine that. Well, what won't you do? Where won't you go? What won't you have? But you see, fear of failure is instilled in us from early childhood. We are told, you don't do this, you avoid that, don't talk to this person, don't go this place, and all that. After a while, you become cautious. So instead of taking action, you seek permission and confirmation. And as we grow, this belief tends to become unconscious and automatic. You may not be aware of its presence, yet it controls you from the shadows, like an invisible puppet master. So overcoming the fear of failure is not easy, but it can be done, especially when you are determined to take your personal growth to the next level. There's no magic pill, there's no drug. You don't have to become fearless, but you have to be willing to face and investigate your fears. So the first thing to do if you want to overcome failure, the fear of failure, is to identify the root cause. Now, F. Scott Fitzgerald says, never confuse a single defeat with a final defeat. Where does your fear of failure originate? Sit down with yourself, take a few deep breaths, ask yourself when your fear of failure was formed, and observe what you see, feel, or hear. When you see what caused your fear of failure, you can also see that your mind's interpretation is far from being accurate. If your parents were overly protective, or if you had a particularly strict teacher, you will see that they did it because they wanted the best for you. It's easy to see how your past self interpreted events, but if you look at the event as an outsider, you see that it had nothing to do with you. It's crucial to examine your negative beliefs. They have a big influence on how you live your life. 2. Simplify. Leonardo da Vinci says simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Complexity is hard to visualize. If you try, you end up feeling overwhelmed. Everything may begin to feel hopeless and not worth doing because you just don't know how or where to start. When I began my online journey, I was overwhelmed. I had no idea of where to go, what to do, or how to do it. But when I simplified the task in front of me, clarity emerged. I had no problem taking action because I had broken everything down into actionable pieces. And if I didn't know what to do, I asked someone or sought out the information I needed. I took the task of starting a website and broke it down to coming up with a domain name, buying hosting, getting a website up and running, and getting a simple design. It also didn't hurt that I was determined to make it work. If you don't have that fire burning inside of you, think twice about moving forward. Find your passion and boldly go where you have never gone before. 3. It is important to realize that failure is inevitable. And Publius Cyrus says it is foolish to fear what you cannot avoid. Failure is inevitable if you want to live a remarkable life. You want to live a life full of passion, meaning, and purpose. We all do. But it's not going to happen if you succumb to your fears and seek the comfortable path. Sooner or later, you will have to overcome the fear of failure, and you will have to overcome many other fears during your lifetime. Sometimes it's overwhelming, frustrating, and exhausting. I know, I've been there. But the more you move through tough periods, the more you grow. If you want to live the life of your dreams, make failure a part of your life. Embrace the temporary pain of uncertainty and struggle. 4. Fail more, succeed more. Robert Allen says there's no failure, only feedback. The more you fail, the more you succeed. I learned that lesson early in life. When I became a commercial school teacher, I was 18, and I already knew that the more feedback I received from my students, the faster I learned. I crave constructive criticism. It is a chance for me to improve on what I'm doing. I never assume that I know it all, nor do I assume that I am above failure. Even the most successful people fail every single day. The difference between the successful and the not yet successful is the realization that failure is a stepping stone and not a death sentence. 5. Failure is temporary. William Brown says failure is an event and not a person. Failure feels permanent, but it is not. When you imagine failing, you probably play an eternal movie in your head until you fail and the credits roll. But real life doesn't work like that. Consider some of your favorite movies. The protagonist may struggle, he or she may fail over and over again until a vital lesson is learned. You can't predict the future, which means you don't know if failure is good or bad. If you learn from it and keep going, chances are it's going to improve your chances of success. Failure molds you into your ideal self. I have failed more times than I can count, yet I still fear failure. The difference now versus my past self is that I know that the fear of failure is just a thought. It conjures up feelings in my body that feel bad. It has no bearing in reality. It is often exaggerated and out of control. It's a mental movie that stops before the story even starts. Most people never stop to observe their thoughts, and they never stop to ponder that their thoughts could be wrong. Why give your thoughts all that authority if they make you feel bad? Number 6, free your mind. And Buddha says the mind is everything. What you think, you become. See your thoughts for what they are. Thoughts. Just because you have a thought doesn't make it true. We aren't taught how we create our experience of life, so we end up being prisoners of our mind. So how does it work? You feel your thinking. If I have a thought that says I'm not good enough, and I believe that thought, I will experience the corresponding feeling. In other words, I'll feel like I'm not good enough. But just because I have that thought and I believe it, doesn't make it so. So how does this help you with fear of failure? You don't have to believe every thought you have. If I have a thought that tells me that I will fail, I can watch it and let it be. I don't have to react. You can feel the feeling of failing. Welcome it in your body. There's nothing to be afraid of. 7. Shift your perspective. There is a Japanese saying that says, failure teaches success. Now, who taught you that failure is a bad thing? It feels bad, so it must be bad. Is that really true? Every belief and thought that makes us feel bad needs to be examined. What good does a fear of failure do us? It's easier said than done to eliminate negative beliefs, but it all starts with being aware that a problem actually exists. The last thing you want to do is get mad at yourself for not being perfect. We all have our unique fears. They often serve a hidden purpose that only reveals itself in hindsight. Your fears help you to grow in the way you need to grow. You realize your negative beliefs when they need to be realized. There's no rush. This is not a competition. You're just doing fine. Look at each failure as a blessing in disguise. It is not through our successes that we become wise. It is through our failures. It can be extremely frustrating, but it teaches us discipline, and it teaches us to value process over results. It taught me one of the most valuable lessons of my life, which is to look at the negative periods as times of learning. The same goes for life. Whenever you're faced with something difficult, learn from it and grow, because it will pass. The eighth thing you need to do in order to overcome the fear of failure is self-growth. Now, according to Mary Pickford, supposing you have tried and failed again and again, you may have a fresh start any moment you choose. For this thing we call failure, it's not the feeling down, but the staying down. We all have the same basic fears. While some get through them easily, others become stuck. Use your fears as signposts that tell you where you have room to grow. Fear of failure is something everyone has to face. It may feel horrible. That's because you imagine it to be so in your mind. Look at the pictures and thoughts that come up when you think about the fear of failure. What do you see? Do you see yourself failing in front of a large group of people? Will then proceed to laugh and ridicule you? This is a story, a movie. You can let it all be. In a way, you're not afraid of failing. You're afraid of the mental movie you keep playing in your head. 9. Welcome fear. Eleanor Roosevelt wrote, "We gain strength and courage and confidence by each experience in which we really stop to look fear in the face. We must do that which we think we cannot." Everyone is afraid to one degree or another. No one is different. It seems to be etched into our DNA. The sooner you befriend your fear, the faster you can move forward. It is not that fear stops you from going after your dreams, but what you decide to do because of those fears. You can reprogram the way you react to your fears, thoughts, and worries. Whenever I'm working on something I deem important, such as a book or e-course, and a fear pops up, I know I'll get through it. The alternative is giving up, and that isn't an option. If you are determined to go after your passion, your fears will become insignificant in comparison. Number 10, take action. You remember Thomas Edison? It says, "I failed my way to success." We have more knowledge at our fingertips now than ever before. The internet gives us access to a sea of information. You can learn and do whatever you feel inspired to do. It's really fantastic. But you can also drown in that sea if you don't know how to swim. So the key is to learn enough to take the next step. When you blend action with the guidance that comes from your heart, your progress will be fast, powerful, and fulfilling. You see, while most people wait for the perfect moment, you'll be out there learning, doing, and growing. This is what will get you the life of your dreams. Number 11, imagine your failure. Vincent van Gogh says, "What would life be if we had no courage to attempt anything?" Sometimes negativity helps. Imagine a future where fear controls your life. What does it look like? Where do you end up? Do you think you will regret it when you're taking your last breath? Now imagine your life having followed your passion despite your fears. You will be living the life you always desired. You will look back at your life without regret. Mistakes would have been made. You may even have been embarrassed once or twice, but it will all have added splashes of color to the canvas of your life. So you can sit at home and feel sorry for yourself, but that's not going to change your life. In order to live a regret-free life, you have to be willing to make mistakes. Throw some color at the canvas and see what happens. You might just be surprised at what you discover. Live life for you, not for anyone else. This is your experience. Enjoy it. Number 12, stay in the now. Again, Buddha says, "Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment." Most of us are pulled to the past or the future. We regret what we have done or not done, and we worry about what's to come. Using the past and the present is fine when done with a purpose, like number 11 up above, but letting your mind run amok will do you no good. There are no problems in the present. If you are listening to my voice right now, chances are high that you are okay. You have a roof over your head, you have food in the fridge, and you feel fine. You will still feel fine without a roof as well. What will make it not okay is your mind and the story it tells you about your situation. So accept the gift that is the present moment. Breathe, smell, hear, and enjoy who you are right now. You already have the key to your happiness. The last but not the least, follow your passion. William Feather says, "No man is a failure who is enjoying his life." When you decide to follow your passion, you're more likely to blast through your fears. You know, like me, that doing anything other than going after your dreams is not an option. I might feel secure in a regular job, but I will never be happy and fulfilled. Sometimes I feel like I'm not living life, but life is living me. I go with my feelings and my heart. I do what excites me. It's an interesting way to live. I invite you to try it. Overcoming fear of failure is as hard as you make it. When you face your fears, you realize that they are not as bad as you thought they would be. So, what will it be? Your fears or the life of your dreams? Until I come your way again, this is Morning Vibes with Dr. Jerry the First. This program is powered by Top Media and Communication, Nigeria. All rights reserved. Thank you for listening to this broadcast this morning. If it has resonated with you, kindly subscribe to our channel and also give us a thumbs up as a show of liking this broadcast. You can also read the full text on our blog, and you can also like our Facebook page. Please kindly find the links to our blog and our Facebook page right in the description box below. And hey, you can also actually click on that bell beside the subscription button so that you can be notified whenever another broadcast is dropped here. Do have a nice day.